14 minutes after 8 o'clock right now. It was 1 year ago tomorrow that Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, and this morning New Orleans still has a very long way to go to get back to some semblance of normalcy. A local man was in the Gulf area when the hurricane hit. He was visiting his ailing mother. Bill Branley joining us now in studio this morning, and he's written a new book called Sea Changes, in which he details his experiences surrounding being essentially in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you went down to New Orleans last August, and your mother was in poor health, and she actually passed away last August 25th. Now, you then heard about this big hurricane that was coming your way. What did you and the family do at that point?
Well, at first, we were planning the funeral. The funeral was going to be Monday, the 29th of August. But instead of having the funeral, we evacuated because by Saturday night, evacuation was mandatory. And, you know, the mayor was telling everybody to leave. And so we were watching the TV and watching traffic, and they opened all lanes of the expressways outbound, and traffic was moving. So we said, let's go. We made a convoy of 22, 23 people plus a dog, and we convoyed out. And
definitely the right decision, obviously, after knowing what happened in New Orleans.
We're all very glad we didn't stay.
Now, you do have a family that lives in New Orleans, and I know you've made a few trips back. Can you tell us about the situation in New Orleans today as opposed to 1 year ago? How much progress has been made?
Well, I went back in October to help with recovery of my family members. And then I went back again in April to have a funeral service for my mother, and then in June for the American Library Association conference. And the transition from October until June was amazing. The convention center was completely restored. Downtown looked great. The French Quarter looked great. But throughout the city, there were still many, many neighborhoods just completely devastated.
And you do have family that still live in New Orleans, and I understand they've sustained some pretty major damage.
Yes. I had one sister who lived in Lakeview, which is one of the areas that was severely flooded. She had water up to her ceiling. She lost everything she had except one box of Christmas decorations. After that, she was able to get a FEMA trailer in the parking lot of her company, lived in a FEMA trailer for 6 or 7 months, and then finally got an apartment uptown where she lives now.
Well, I mean, just an unforgettable experience, and definitely one that could be life-changing, and you've written a book, Sea Change. Can you tell us what we can expect to see in that book?
Well, I was commuting on the ferry from Bainbridge Island to Seattle, and I started this little story based on people that I observed on a ferry. Well, when I went to New Orleans for my mother's death and the hurricane, I invented a fictional family that represents my family, and I worked it into the story. And at the end, I realized I had a good story, so I rewrote it into a novel and published it as Sea Changes.
Sea Change is the name of the novel. And by the way, tomorrow you can attend the Katrina Book Bash. That's happening at the Eagle Harbor Books on Bainbridge Island, 10 o'clock in the morning. And for a $10 donation, you can receive a copy of Bill Branley's book. It's called Sea Changes, and the money will go toward replenishing books in the Gulf Coast. That's a pretty worthy cause. Bill Branley, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.